Hi, and welcome to That's Ready Mysterious. Join me for an intriguing look into real-life mysteries. Who was the mad gasser of Mattoon? What was whaling at the Wilga waterhole? I'm not going to solve those mysteries, but they'll be interesting to learn about. I'm your host, Kelly with an I. Transcripts and references for all episodes can be found at that'sreadymysterious.wordpress.com. No apostrophe and no exclamation point. Today's tale is about the Athena Parthenos. The Athena Parthenos, or the Virgin Goddess, was a giant statue that stood within the Parthenon in ancient Greece. It disappeared sometime in late antiquity. What happened to it? The Parthenon was built between 447 and 432 BC during the Golden Age of Pericles. Although it has usually been described as a temple, the Parthenon was more of a treasury for the city of Athens. It had no priestess, and the only cult rituals that were held there were the annual Pan-Athenic processions. The processions celebrated the birth of the goddess Athena, and the climax of the procession was when the people redraped the Athena Parthenos. The Parthenon was dedicated to the city's patron god Athena. It was built specifically to house a new gold and ivory cult statue of the goddess sculpted by master sculptor Phidias. The name Parthenon came from one of Athena's names and meant virgin. Parthenon means House of Parthenos, which was the name given in the 5th century BC to the chamber or cella inside the temple that housed the statue. In the 4th century BC, the whole building took on the name. The Parthenon was magnificently decorated on the outside. The most important sculpture, however, was always supposed to be the giant statue of Athena that stood inside. The cult statue of Athena showed the goddess standing, fully armed, and holding a 4-cubit, 1.8 meter, or 6 feet tall statue of the goddess of victory, Nike, in her right hand. She wore a peplos dress tucked into her belt. In her left hand, she held a large circular shield which rested on the floor. The shield showed scenes of the Battle of Theseus and the Amazons on the front and the Battle of the Giants on the back. The 30 or so figures on the front of the shield were most likely made of silver or bronze. The background had landscape features and fortifications. Athena had a spear on her left side, and a large coiled snake lay between her feet and the shield. On her triple-crested helmet, Athena had a sphinx in the middle and a griffin with Pegasus wings on each side. The griffins ornamented the cheek pieces of the helmet. Athena's chest featured a snake-tasseled aegis or protective cloak given to Athena by Zeus with the head of Medusa in ivory. The sides of her sandals were decorated with the mythical battle between the centaurs and the Lapiths. The base of the statue showed scenes of the birth of Pandora. Records show the statue in detail. There are detailed descriptions of it by Plutarch and Pausanias, as well as Pliny. Because of these records, we can pretty accurately recreate how the statue originally looked. According to Pliny, the statue was around 11.5 meters, or almost 38 feet tall. The ceiling of the Parthenon was about 12.8 meters, or 42 feet high, so the statue almost reached the ceiling. It was carved of ivory for the flesh parts and gold for the rest, making it a crystallophitine structure. The statue had about 1,140 kilograms, or 1.25 US tons of gold. The gold and ivory all surrounded a wooden core made of cypress wood. The wood came from a forest dedicated to the god Apollo, so the wood was sacred and only to be used for religious purposes. Thin pieces of pressed ivory covered the core, and gold was used to decorate. The statue stood on a pedestal that was 4.09 meters, or 13.5 feet, by 8.04 meters, or a little over 26 feet. The spot on the floor where the core once stood can still be seen today. Athena faced the east door and was surrounded by Doric columns of peristyle which were set inside the cella. In front of the statue was a large but shallow pool of water that reflected light into the chamber and maintained a humid environment the statue needed to preserve the ivory. The statue would have cost the city 5,000 talents, which is a massive amount of money and more than the Parthenon itself cost. The gold parts of the statue were intended to be removed if needed during hard financial times. By the time Phidias was asked to make the sculpture of Athena, he had already become famous for the huge Athena Promachos that he built. This statue was in the Acropolis and could supposedly be seen from Cape Sunion. Pericles commissioned Phidias to build Athena Parthenos. Phidias also designed the Parthenon as well as a statue of Zeus in Olympia. Phidias started building the statue in 447 BC and it was dedicated in 438 BC. It would be the city's symbol for the next 1,000 years until late antiquity. That's when it disappeared from the historical records. Was it taken by Constantinople? Was it destroyed where it stood? Athena Parthenos was copied in Hellenistic and Roman times. The best preserved and most complete copy is the Verakian statuette. This statuette stands 1.05 meters or just under 3.5 feet tall. It's a Roman copy made of marble during the 2nd century CE around the year 130. Verakian statuette now stands in the National Archaeological Museum of Athens. There are some other copies as well. Lenormant statuette is also a Roman copy made during the 2nd or 3rd century CE. It stands 42 centimeters or 16.5 inches tall and is still in Athens. The Patras statuette is 86 centimeters or just under 34 inches tall and is currently in Patras. There is a 1.54 meters or just over 5 feet tall copy in Boston, Massachusetts. There is a Hellenistic version from Pergamon built in 160 BC. It stands 3.1 meters or 10 feet tall and has preserved some partial figures at the base. It is currently in Berlin. There are also detailed images of Athena Parthenon's head on a 4th century BC gold medallion currently in St. Petersburg, as well as on a red jasper intaglio from the 1st century BC in the Palazzo Massimo alle Terme in Rome. The statue of Nike is also copied a lot. There is a full-size copy from Cyrene currently in Philadelphia. The shield is another frequently copied part of Athena Parthenos. Scenes of the Amazons are shown in 2nd century CE Roman slabs from the Piraeus wreck, now on display in the Archaeological Museum of Piraeus. The Parthenon stood until it fell to the Byzantines, which was the first Christian empire. The Byzantines outlawed paganism, which was the fall of Greek rule. The Byzantines converted the Parthenon into a Christian church, but by this time Athena Parthenos was already gone. Was it damaged during a fire in the 3rd century? Some reports say that it was, but that it was repaired. Was it destroyed in a heretical manner by the Byzantines? Did they melt down the gold for their own enrichment? What happened to Athena Parthenos? What do you think? Leave a comment and let me know what you think. Thanks for listening to today's episode of That's Ready Mysterious. Join me next week for another captivating mystery.